Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Hire podcast. On Beyond the Hire, we dive into recruiting for the go to market space, what it takes to build winning teams, and how industry leaders got to where they are today. My name is Sandra, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bets, and I'm also accompanied by Aisha, our marketing manager. Hi, Aisha.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. We are accompanied today by Jennifer Penn. She is the Vice President of North American Sales for Talent Neuron, and she is based in Atlanta, Georgia. She has over 25 years of experience driving innovative and complex sales strategies and seeing them through execution. She has developed an expertise in building high-performing senior sales teams. Her passion for talent emerged in her early days of leadership and continued to blossom as an executive recruiter for Russell Reynolds. She spent the last 6 years of her career at Workday, Eightfold, and now Talent Neuron. Hello, Jennifer, or should I say Jen?
Jen. Most people know me as Jen Penn.
Hi. Oh, Jen Penn. I love that
I love
rhymes. That's
it.
amazing.
I married it.
This was a choice you made. What was your maiden name?
It was Michna, Michna.
Okay, Penn is easier.
Yeah, a lot.
Rolls of the tongue. Jen Penn. I love this. I love that I did not even notice that as I was reading Jennifer Penn. Jen Penn. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. You have had an incredible career, a lot of different companies, a lot of different roles. But let's start at the beginning here. Maybe not all the way at the beginning, but you had an amazing role at Gartner where you were for almost 7 years. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it might have been 7.5 years. But yeah, I started as an individual contributor at Gartner as an account executive. I had a big personal event in my life with my son going through a really traumatic injury. And so I really wasn't in a place to be able to lead a team. I needed a more flexible role. And I was really respectful of Gartner. And I wanted to learn it and to know it inside and out before I moved into a leadership position.
And I want to talk more about your son in a little bit. But for those who don't know, I feel like we all know Gartner. But for those who don't, can you quickly explain what Gartner is?
Sure. I mean, the way I used to describe it to people, like the elevator pitch, was it's like consumer reports for IT professionals. So that's how Gartner started. And then while I was there, they acquired a company called CEB, Corporate Executive Board, which put them in every other BU within a company. So legal and HR and sales and so on.
Amazing. So you started as an individual contributor, and you mentioned a little bit about your son, and you kind of shared that with us ahead of the podcast starting. I think this is a very interesting development because, especially as people who are career focused and ambitious,
Mm-hmm.
you want to give your all to your career, but sometimes something happens that means you can't.
That's right.
And whether that is, as a woman having a child or that child having some type of injury or you
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable, would you mind sharing just at what point in your career this happened and what then happened to your career?
Oh gosh. I mean, I was mid-career, exactly mid-career. My son, perfectly healthy, wonderful, super athletic, super smart, young 8-year-old healthy son, had a massive brain hemorrhage and stroke one day. And I was on a business trip in Iowa and I got
Wow.
a phone call I never want to get again. And Will's having a stroke. And then I had brain surgeons talking to me about what they
Wow.
were going to do to my son. And I mean, the feelings, always bubble back up to the top. Like,
Yeah.
how do you respond to that? And yeah, so all of that happened. And it happened at a time when I had left recruiting. I left recruiting only because I was dismissed. So Global Rookie of the Year at Russell Reynolds, when the bottom fell out of the world at the end of 2008,
Yeah.
they could see it coming. And I had had a really successful year and I was one role shy of being a partner. And if they laid me off before the end of the year, they could not pay me my bonus. So
Yeah.
another tough career lesson. But then you look back on the broader plan and you're like, this would not have been a good job for me to have with a critically ill son. So I moved on to one of my customers at Russell Reynolds.
No way.
Happened to be hiring. I was meeting with one of their board members to present their successful candidate for the VP of
Wow.
sales. And she's like, hey, how you doing? Is someone I knew and had known in the past and had worked for. And I said, well, interestingly, I just got laid off, but hey, I've got this great guy for you. And, that's just how life and things happen. Right. And so my son just was in a coma for a week and a half,
Wow.
out of the coma, blind and paralyzed from the neck down. So very, very traumatic time for me and my whole family. And you can't even focus on work when something like
No.
that is happening. The whole world stops. But then you realize, guess what? The whole world needs to continue to go on. So, what does my life and what does my career look like now?
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I had started interviewing with Gartner, and we had a relationship over a period of 6 months, me and the hiring manager, whose name happens to be Angela Ballou. And I'm going to give her a shout out today because it is her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Angela.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
And so we developed a great relationship, and that, all leads into this whole topic that we're talking about today, and finding the right fit for the right role, whether you're a hiring manager, whether you are the professional. And we just developed this wonderful relationship, and I treated her like she was one of my customers. In so doing, she knew exactly what kind of salesperson I would be. And she didn't even put me through the role plays and all the other things, because after 5 months, she's like, I know exactly what I'm getting. So, in any event, I knew that I could take on an individual contributor role and still get Will to all of his therapy appointments and school and all of the things. So he had, in those early days, he was doing at least 10 appointments a week. So it was a lot. And we all are forced to make these important decisions throughout our careers, and they're never easy. As I always say, there's many balls in life, and at any given time, there is at least one sitting on the ground. There just is, and that's just the way it is. And so you have to make these decisions on, what do I want out of my life? What is fulfilling to me? What is a great work day? Do I have to be the president? Do I have to be the CMO? Do I have to be the CRO? Or am I really delighted as an account executive, making a lot of money, bringing great solutions to customers? And then what do I want out of my personal life? How much time do I have to give those little boys that I'm raising here at home? And so it's hard. Some of my most successful friends in business don't have families. And so you do have to make these decisions, and there's not one decision that's better than another. So that's what I did when Will was working on the tougher parts of his recovery. I was an account executive. And after my first year, I had a blowout year. And they're like, hey, Jen, we really like you to lead the team in the South. And I answered them, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for a couple of reasons. One, this is a nice senior team here. I still feel like I need more repetitions, more at bats. I want to see more, and I want to do more so that I can be a better leader. And then I also need a little bit more flexibility in my personal life. And as things do, it came around again. And when it did, the timing was right for me. And it was right for the company. It was right for the team that I went on to lead at Gartner.
That's really beautiful that, in your career, what's supposed to find you will find you, and that they respected your decisions
Mm-hmm.
of you needing a little bit more flexibility. Can I ask, is your son all better today?
He has what I would call a very miraculous recovery for someone who had the injury that he had.
Yeah.
So it was a congenital brain vein malfunction in his brain. He is in his senior year at Georgia College, and he is partially paralyzed on his left side, but he walks to class every single day. So he walks
Wow.
3 to 4 miles a day and lives independently and makes himself dinner and the whole thing. So he's in regular college and going to graduate this time next year. So we're super, just a dream come true. I'm going to be the mom in the audience bawling.
Yes.
I'm about to start bawling right
Yeah.
now.
No one can see us, but like the moment Jen started talking, I was like, my eyes just started welling up, because that's, like you said, the call no one ever wants to receive. I have an almost 5-year-old and a 9-month-old.
Yeah.
So you immediately start thinking about your own children. What would happen if I received that call?
Yeah. It becomes part of your story,
Yeah.
even though it's not one you would have chosen for yourself. It is what it is. And I do think it makes me a better sales leader. I do. It's a very human thing that happened to me. And I always say everyone has something. And there is a lot of resilience that comes from something like this. And you can find out what a person's made of, how they move forward from getting pushed down. How fast do they dust off?
So true. Have you, as a leader, experienced something where you're like, I'm being particularly empathetic because I know what it's like, and been able to give a team member the time?
Yeah, you get all kinds of situations when you're a leader. And there are tough conversations that you need to have. I've been in multiple positions where I've had women reporting to me in an abusive relationship with their
Wow.
husband. Yeah, wow. Like, where's the line? Like, where's the line of work, home, advice that I might be giving that person, strength, courage, inspiration? It's hard. Being a leader is really hard, but you have to have the compassion. And at the same time, there's moving on. I like or not, you can call me old school. I just don't believe in hanging the boots up because I've got a cough or I'm tired or I had to stay up till 3 a.m. because my dog threw up or whatever the excuse was. I had surgery on my foot last Wednesday. I took a call in the morning. And when we were back in the car, I did a one on one with one of my team members at 4 o'clock. Like, that's just the way I operate. And I don't necessarily expect other people to be that crazy. Like, I recognize there's some problems with that. But I do have compassion for people and I do check in on how things are going on the important things in their lives. But we all have this thing called work, right?
Yeah.
And these jobs of the people reporting to me have really big jobs and a lot of responsibility, and they need to step up. And if I need to help them find a different role, if this just isn't the right time for them, then we do that. And that's happened in my career too. I've had people go through divorces and associated depression and things like that where they simply couldn't execute on the job and they were miserable. So, it wasn't the right job for them right then. And that's what this is all about. When you're looking for a job, is finding the right fit for you just as much as I'm looking for the right fit for my company and my team. Number 1, you can have 100% of the knowledge and the experience and the track record, but if you are not a culture fit, you will not work out. I can tell you all at Bets can raise your hand super high and touch the ceiling and say, "Get you. I completely understand." But that's the number one thing that you should be looking for yourself. Is this the right home for me? And the same thing as a hiring leader. You can look, oh my God, this person's such a rock star. But you're like, they don't fit. That's a hard one to say no to,
Yeah, I always say interviewing is a two-way street. As much as they're interviewing you, you have to interview them right back and make sure it's a good fit.
for sure.
What would your advice be if someone is going through something big in their private life and they don't know if they should or how to talk to their manager about it? What would you say to them?
I think you have to do you in that. I think I live my life out loud. And so I'm comfortable sharing what's going on in most parts of my life anyway.
Yeah.
But it's important for people to understand what's going on in your life and in your background so that they can give you the grace when you need it. So I would say as little or as much as you want to tell. I mean, you don't have to give all the gory details, but you can say, listen, I'm going through a lot at home. My husband has cancer and, his treatments and my involvement in that. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. And my intent is to give this job at least 90%. It might not be 100% right now, but I want you to know that I'm going to give it 90%.
100% of what they have to offer in that moment, which could be 90% of their normal. But
Yeah.
that's really good advice. And brings me back to Gartner then. You waited to take a leadership role because you weren't ready with what you needed at that moment in time.
hmm
What did it look like when you were ready and how did you move into that role? When did you get to start hiring for that team?
Oh, gosh, right away. And what it looked like for me was I felt comfortable. I felt confident that I could now lead this team. And it was a team of my peers, right? So it was a team that I was actually had been on, and it was a team of my peers. And so there was a lot of comfort with the team members. And then you have to establish yourself as the leader. And that can be a little bit tricky because you've been super friendly with everyone, hopefully, right? In the team dynamics. And so I just felt really confident that I had the knowledge and what was needed to walk into that role at that time. And, had ideas. And I would consider myself a servant leader. So while it's not a meritocracy, I'm still going to ask for your opinion because I want to serve you. I want to enable you to be the best salesperson you can be. And I had a feel like I knew what those things needed to be. So that's why I came in with a lot of ideas. And then, like any other job, it gets down to prioritization where what ideas or what things can I execute on that are going to have the greatest impact first.
That's really nice. I know it's been a little bit since then, but
Yeah,
do you remember your best hire there or your most successful hire? You do.
I do. I do. It's another woman named Jen. And
I love that.
I had a really strong team. And we talked about resilience a little bit earlier. And I had asked my team members, hey, I'm hiring, if you know anyone. And this gentleman, Steven, on my team said, oh, my friend Jen, she's really great, blah, 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 blah. She goes, you will love her. You will love her. She's one of those women that you knock down and she just gets right back up. And I had super smart people. I had everything on my team. And with all due respect to Jen, she's super bright and super smart, but she wasn't the smartest person on my team. But she had a mindset second to none. She walked into a territory where someone couldn't do anything in it. And even the person before didn't do a lot with this territory. And she led the team that year, went to President's Club, and she just has that great balance between IQ and EQ, right? And being able to read the room, which is one of the big things that I hire to is how authentic are they? How contagious are they? How can they fill up a room and just own it? And how can you honestly do the work and ask for the business?
Yeah, one of our previous guests said it's not necessarily about being the smartest in the room, but about working the hardest and learning from the smartest people in the room. So it sounds like she did a little bit of that.
Yeah, I would also say some of my top account executives were also just like, I was so admiring of their efficiency in the way they worked. Because I'm one of those rabbit hole people that I'm constantly having to keep myself from being a perfectionist and running down that hole. And some of the folks that have been super successful for me are extremely organized and extremely efficient, have a really strong approach to their territories.
I think that's really good advice in general to not get stuck down those rabbit holes and not to be a perfectionist, even though you like to deliver really amazing work.
Yeah.
I want to move because you've had an incredible career. When did you decide it was time to move on from Gartner? Because you were there for so long. I can imagine it's comfortable being there.
Oh man, that was a really hard, really emotional decision for me. I love Gartner to this day. I love the culture there. It's a sales forward culture. I loved my team. I loved the people. I loved my leadership. I loved our division and our role in selling to high tech companies. I was super passionate about it. And it was really time for me to be promoted. And I was going to have to leave my division. And there were a couple of other little things, but one of my teammates moved on to Workday. And I said, hey, if anything comes up, let me know. And sure enough, I was literally waking up in Hawaii when I got a call from a recruiter who was wanting to engage me about Workday. Well, at the time, Workday was the hottest company on the planet. And how could you not take notice? And I wanted to lean into the challenge of learning a completely new industry, and would my leadership stand up there? Now, normally, Workday wouldn't hire someone without software experience. I didn't have human capital experience other than being a leader and working for Russell Reynolds. But what I had was leadership, and that's what they needed. The South region for Workday needed to be turned around, frankly. It was flailing and they had gone through a lot of changes, a lot of bad leadership. So that was what I knew that I could bring to Workday was leadership. And that's where we met. That was what I could bring them. Because frankly, it's never about you. It's never about, oh, I want a new challenge. I want to lean in. I want to stretch myself in my career. They don't care about that. They really don't. It's always about them. What can you bring them? And that was what I focused on was that leadership element. And I started to make the hiring leader think that's exactly what I need. I need a leader. So that's how that went down. And it, I just thought, well, I'll talk to the leader. And if I don't like them, I'll move on. This will be a non-issue and it'll be so easy. And then I talked to him and I really liked him. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it went. So it was a very difficult decision to leave, but financially it was a fantastic move for me. So that made it a lot easier and just the whole excitement of it. So it was a big shift in my career to really move out of services and into technology sales or software sales.
Yeah, we love technology at Bed.
You do.
Yeah. It sounds like you've gotten a lot of your roles through your network. Has that been the case for every single one of your roles?
Yes, every single one.
Honestly, and Aisha knows this, we repeat, your network is your net worth. So we always,
really is.
Network as much as you can. Take every conversation and every call because
Absolutely.
you never know where it'll lead. Do you have any tips for people on how to network and make sure you expand the people you know and talk to every day?
It's really hard for some people, and I understand that. I just go into it with just loving that whole curiosity element and just seeking to learn. And there's a lot of people who don't mind networking. And quite frankly, having been someone in a position, right? We just talked about my son, and I have never in my life been a receiver. Oh my God, I'm always the giver. And it's really hard to be on the end of learning how to receive. And that's the same thing that networking is. You have to go into it thinking, this person gets up the same way that I do every day. They're either going to be willing to help me or not willing to help me. But it's all about leveraging your network to get to those right conversations and those right people. And I'm always of the mind when someone reaches out to network with me, I always, especially if they're younger, because I do love to mentor young professionals, I always tell them the goal of this call is for me to get you 2 interactions. And then those 2 people, and then it just starts to multiply from there. And before you know it, you've got this massive network built around your job search. So I think it's like swallow the frog, do it first thing in the morning, get it over with, put that reward out there for you. Like, if I do this, then I get to go do this other thing that I love so much, is just to motivate yourself that way and just to be really, really disciplined about your approach and be disciplined in a way that you can execute well on it, because you can kind of network too much, right? And you're going to end up dropping potentially valuable balls.
That makes sense. And does it mean that our listeners today can message you on LinkedIn asking for that conversation?
I will do my best.
She's like, not too many at once. No, I like that.
Well, and it's something, and I know you all appreciate this at Bets. As a recruiter, I was not a mercenary. I was really committed to my candidates. They were important to me. Those candidates, they weren't only going to be my customers one day, but I was uprooting them, right, from their lives into a completely different position. And I just have compassion for other people, and I want to make that world go round. I want to extend that kindness forward so that it truly is what goes around comes around. And if I can help, I always really do like to help. Just chase me really hard, because I am I work like 14 hours a day. So I do as much as I can.
That's really nice. So speaking of working 14 hours a day, so you were able to turn Workday around.
Yeah.
I know I read that in less than 2 years, you took them from 50% achievement to 197%. So would love to learn a little bit about how you went about doing that, right? You were new to the industry, but you'd been a leader before. Yeah. How do you get to know the processes and then put your own stamp on it that actually leads to those results?
Yeah, you kind of actually hit on something there with the processes, Sandra. You have to go in with an open mind and realize that your job for the first, let's call it 3 months, is to do a lot of listening and a lot of interviewing, right, of your business partners internally. And so I was having a lot of phone calls there with all of my various different business partners. And I kept getting this message of, we really want to help you be successful. And it's like, oh, that's so great from a culture perspective. But there was this underlying current of, we don't like sales and we don't trust you. And so I just did Jen, right? And just blew through all of that and continued to have those conversations. And those internal business partners became my customers. So as an account executive or a salesperson, you always seek to underpromise and overdeliver, right? So those people became my customers. If I put it out there that I was going to do something, by God, I would do it. And so I started to deliver on those internal relationships. And surprisingly, while we did have some external relationships that needed to be fixed, the biggest thing I can point to about that turnaround was internal, was fixing those internal relationships and repairing them and creating trust and creating beyond the trust a true partnership together and getting everyone in the boat rowing in the same direction, just like you do with your own team. It was like I have this extended team and we're all in this thing together. It's not me against you ever. It's all about we all have one team, one dream. So how can we execute on that together? And that was really surprising to me. I had no idea what I was in for, none whatsoever. And the learning about the industry and the software and the talk track and all that stuff, it just kind of came along the way, right? I mean, I jumped right into a fire and, had to let go people and had to bring new team members on. So, yeah, that was a unique situation.
Yeah, how quickly, because you said you spent the first 3 months listening.
Mhm.
How quickly did you feel like you had to show results?
Well, Workday will make sure that you're producing every month.
So immediately.
I think there's always the pressure. Like I've done the same thing here at Talent Neuron. I've only been here for 4 months, and we hit a complete reorg, complete reset button, new product set. I feel like I'm in a similar situation right now. And I feel as of yesterday, I've filled out my team. So I've got the right talent, the right energy, the right know how to move forward. And now it's about, okay, building that pipeline and closing sales. So if you're a salesperson and you don't feel pressure to close a sale, then you're not in the right job. You're just not. So I think most of the pressure comes from yourself. And it's what we feed on. Salespeople love to be successful. So that's what we do.
That's amazing. I love that you kind of had to perform right away. Because I always love kind of hearing what everyone does kind of that first year, if not, the first 3 months, because it says so much. And as first time leaders, and we place a lot of first time leaders,
Mm-hmm.
I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself to immediately deliver. And
Yeah.
sometimes you forget to do that listening. So it's interesting to kind of hear from someone who's done it a few times over now how to handle that pressure, but also simultaneously know that you need some time to observe,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that.
find balance.
There's something about coming in running too fast, running and gunning. Like, what did you just bring in your random playbook and you think your playbook's going to work here just the same as it used to? Because I've been on the receiving end of that and it just lands so falsely.
And then obviously the same playbooks don't work everywhere. Would you say that you've throughout your career always kind of gravitated towards hiring the same type of people, or does it completely depend on the company you're in?
I, like anybody else, sometimes you want to hire too many of yourself in a way, and that's
Yeah.
never a good thing. So I'm always cognizant of bringing someone who has unique value to my team, who can bring a different expertise to the table, because that's one of the things that I think makes my team so much fun is that we're all extremely collaborative and we work together, yet and we have fun, but there's always that underlying competitive spirit of, but I want to be number one on the team. But yet there's just this incredible balance of wanting to be a part of a team instead of being your own thing. And we had a call this morning on just leveraging the amazing technology that ChatGPT is in demand gen. And it was so cool, like going through it and seeing everyone's eyes light up because everyone's using it.
Yeah.
But how is Sandra using it? How's Ryan doing it? How's Nick doing it?
We're big fans of ChatGPT. Life changing.
Life changing.
Amazing. The more we can use it, honestly, the better. It's automated. It's made so many processes just easier. AI, I'm a huge fan. A lot of our clients obviously are in the AI space too, but it's made all the difference. So let's talk about you moving from Workday to Eightfold.
Okay.
How did that come about? What made you decide to kind of move to Eightfold and take that step in your career?
Let's see. So there was a lot going on during the time period that I was at Workday. I would say that was right when COVID hit. It was right when the BLM movement hit. There was just a lot going on. There was a lot of pressure. I don't want to say anything bad, but what I would say is the sales culture was not something I wanted to be a part of. And I just didn't care for it anymore. And there was just a lot of toxicity around me. So when I was hired in, my leader who hired me was let go less than 3 months later. And it was hardly, I hardly had a chance to say goodbye. And, I was so busy and he left. And so things went on. And, there is a good old boys network there. And I've never in my entire career thought of myself as a woman in a man's world.
Interesting.
Never had I actually thought about that. I was just always whatever, and I've always been one of the guys. And it was interesting at Workday, I was the only female on the entire East Coast in my sales division. Only female in leadership, in an account executive position, in anything. I was the only female when I joined. But that can be software. We're getting more and more women in software, but that was part of it. And there was a lot of good old boys club and all that going on there. But in any event, it just, long and short, wasn't the right place for me. So I called the leader who hired me in and I said, well, you've recently been through a job search, in the last couple of years. Tell me what you found. Tell me what's interesting. What do you have going on at WorkHuman? And he said, well, I can't really hire you right now. And you're too expensive for me. He said, but why don't you call this company Eightfold? They're unbelievable. And the CRO is right there in Atlanta. And I said, oh, okay. Added them to the networking list. And I'll never forget my first call with Jeff Griggs. It was just like, I started to really understand what Eightfold was and what the technology was and where it filled in the gaps of Workday. And I started to be really fascinated by it. And as I was looking for new companies, I started to ask myself questions. Well, do you want to go back and work for AT&T again, this 126, 30 million, whatever, billion-dollar conglomerate and be a nothing? Or do you want to go to a smaller company where you can have a bigger impact on the culture? Because I don't know everything about myself, but the one thing I do know is that I'm a culture carrier. And it's something that's important to me and what people gravitate, why they gravitate toward me. And so I thought, well, if I go to a smaller company, I can have a bigger impact. And that was important to me. And that it elevates you in your career. It does, just automatically by going to a smaller company, you carry a bigger stick. And so Eightfold, one thing led to another, had some great conversations, looked at some great demos, met some really incredible people, great team there. I think they were just short of $50 million when I joined them. And a few months later, we got our Series E funding. It was a really large infusion from SoftBank, and we were off to the races. So we were really well funded, air quotes, startup, and had a lot of really good years there. And for me, it was a lesson in leadership, right? The impact of leadership, an impact on good leaders, and an impact of bad leaders. And interestingly, our president at the time, when he left Eightfold, it was just he left, and the next person left, and the next person left, and the next person left. And then the leader that I worked for over at Workday, in a script I couldn't have written myself, came over to be our co-CEO at Eightfold.
No way.
Yeah. And systematically, I would say he's torn that place apart. I don't care if the whole world hears about it, but it's an example of how important leadership is to everything, to the culture, to the results. Yeah. So when that happened, I knew that again, I needed to move on. And one of my peers, Bets, had reached out to one of my peers and he said, you know what, you need to call Jen Penn. And now we're having this conversation.
Wait, that's amazing on so many different levels. I've definitely left a boss before that I didn't enjoy. And if they followed me where I went, that would have been an absolute nightmare. I can't even imagine what my response would be.
You're sort of, and I'm a glass half full person. So it's like, oh, well, this will be good. And your voice is going up.
Yeah.
And your gut knows the answer, right? But you're just like, oh, I'm so married to what we're doing. I'm so committed. And, that only gets you so far. And, there were all kinds of decisions made that led to where Eightfold's at today. So, it is what it is. And I just look back on it and I just smile because remember, Talent Neuron was a part of Gartner just 2 years ago. So,
Wait, meant to be.
yeah.
Meant to be.
So it just was kind of kismet how it all played out and the decisions that you make and the timing. And you're just like, wow, this is great. And, had some really engaging discussions here with the leaders here at Talent Neuron and really, really love this. I really love the leadership team. And I thought I can be a part of this team. So we're working really hard and doing exciting things and have more exciting things to do. So a lot of energy for this particular job that I'm in right now.
I have like a million more questions. I'm going to try to keep it to like a short list. Number one is you kind of said this quickly, but at Eightfold, I think you said Jeff was in Atlanta
Yeah.
and you wanted to network with him.
Hmm.
How did you actually, because you're like, oh, I had a few conversations with him. I'm sure everyone is like, wait, you glazed over that way too quickly. How did you get in touch with him? Did you like, show up at his front door? I'm assuming not, but
Well, how funny. So, how funny is this? The guy who hired me at Workday, his name is Jason Griggs. And the guy who hired me at Eightfold is Jeff Griggs. And I only got them mixed up on the phone one time.
okay, I was like, are they brothers?
They're not. It was just so funny. And Jason had talked to Eightfold extensively and they had offered him a role and he really loved the company, but he got a CRO opportunity at WorkHuman and said, oh, I need to go in that direction. But he really was a fan of Eightfold. And so he had developed a strong relationship with Jeff and, just said, hey, one of the, text connecting you two, talk. And on we went. And in fact, I was sitting in the parking lot. I'll never forget. I was sitting in the parking lot of Georgia Tech while Will was inside testing a robotic knee in the PhD lab when I spoke with Jeff.
Oh,
So,
no way.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's also really cool. Okay, that's amazing. Again, like if you leave a good impression with the people you work with, your network is your net worth. That's absolutely amazing. It's funny because actually at
And stay
Bets,
in touch with them too, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah, I do try to like shoot the messages every once in a while. But one of the recruiters at Bets was like, "We need to hire someone like you at insert name from of company.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to have anyone you kind of work with that you think is like you that you would recommend?"
Yeah.
Because I guess the profile they got on fit me to a T, but I'm very happily employed at Bets.
Right.
So she was like, "Do you know anyone?" And I literally went through my network and I was like, "I do know some people. Here's someone who I met, never actually personally worked with, but collaborated with at different companies who had a similar role as I did." So it is very, very, very true. Even with a recruiter and everything like that, your network still is your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. All right, so because you worked at a lot of different companies throughout your career and you've had such an incredible career, I think you are uniquely qualified to answer this.
Okay.
As someone, you're like, what is the question?
Oh.
As you're considering new, especially leadership roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really important that you get along with the leadership team. And you've talked a lot about, interviewing the leadership team and talking to them. And I purposefully say you interview the leadership team. What are some red flags? And maybe that you didn't know initially were red flags, but looking back, you're like, okay, those were major red flags.
When you sense a strong, like too much ego, I'm always looking for humility and for people who are open to feedback, who are more collaborative. And you can get to that just by talking to someone, especially if they're just talking too much and maybe they're not caring about you too much in the conversation. It's just, I always want there to be this beautiful rapport and back and forth and like-minded thinking in terms of direction of where the company's going, in terms of, maybe in the case of technology, the product set and the space that you fill in the marketplace and just their thoughts and feelings around that and just what the plan is, what the go-to-market plan is, and just you want to be somewhat like-minded. If you feel like, if it for me, it's a gut thing too, right? Like, am I excited about getting on the phone with Sandra to talk to her today, or am I like,
hope
oh,
so.
got to talk to her again? Can I work with these people? Can I talk to Sandra more than I talk to my husband, Steve? Because that's reality. These are the people that you're living with every single day, Monday through Friday. And it's like, can I work with these people? Can I collaborate with them? Are they open minded? And I remember when I interviewed with the CEO at Talent Neuron, she was a little, let's call it, biased against some of the former Gartner people, just because they came from a much larger environment. And Talent Neuron spun out of Gartner and literally became a startup. And so it's a really different scenario and a really different mindset. And she said, I didn't even want to talk to you because you had Gartner on your resume. And I'm like, oh, this interview's starting great. Like, oh, okay. And, the conversation went on and she said a couple things. And I, a number of different times, defended Gartner or their process or a policy or something like that. And I said, well, I beg to differ, yada, yada kind of thing. And I wasn't quite sure how the interview went, but I just did me. And I think that's the other important thing when you're talking to people is not to be someone that you're not. Like, that's not going to pay dividends for you long term. So I wanted to be authentic in those conversations as much as I wanted them to be authentic with me. And that's what I got from this entire leadership team, from the CRO to the chief product officer to the CEO and so on. I got really authentic people who were sharing their vision of where Talent Neuron was going. And I just had like these really passionate conversations. I remember talking to Ellen Tomayason, who runs our strategic consulting team, and we had overlapped in a few, like at Workday and some other places. And we were just like, yeah, and it was like, oh, I could go to war with her, and you walk away feeling like, and the other job that I was looking at was to go back to work with Jeff Griggs. And I adore Jeff. I loved working for him. I love his leadership style. It just so many things I could go on about Jeff. But ultimately, it was this company, this product set, this team that was the right fit for me. And I kept trying to tell myself, don't worry about making a decision you don't have to make yet. And I knew that somehow this would play out one way or the other. And when Catherine called me to offer me the job, I just knew in that moment, this is where I need to be.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And you're absolutely right. Your career is such a huge part of your everyday of your life.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Especially, if you're a go-getter and ambitious and, a powerhouse like yourself, it's so many hours of your day. So you do have to enjoy the people you work with.
100, 100, 1,000.
I know. And I know they say like, oh, it's your family. It's like toxic. But also in a way, I'm like, they're not your family, but they are the people, you are closest to for that moment in time. And it is important you get along with them.
Some of my best friends are people that I've worked with.
That's amazing.
I also believe that people should marry people that they work with. I don't know why that's frowned upon. I really don't. You spend lots of time with them. It's the best place to meet a spouse.
I love it. I've been with my husband since before I started a career at all because we were very young, but I'm very curious if would have ever at work. That's really funny because like you, I've heard never do that. Yeah. And I've never had to worry about that. That's so funny.
Yeah. Neither did I, but I never judged it when it happened. I'm like, makes a lot of sense.
So you're completely against the don't dip your pen in the company ink saying that they say.
I am against that. I am. Honestly, if
anyone on Jen's team is listening, you heard it here first. She's very okay with you dipping your ink, your pen, your ink.
Your pen in the company ink.
I have a senior team. Not too many people are, looking for a spouse. So we're good. We've checked that box.
That's hilarious. That's really good.
That's so funny. That's a new idea for a dating app.
I know, literally.
Matching at work.
Oh my God. You heard it here first. We're going to start a new app that's literally just dating your colleagues. So if you're on it, all you see is your colleagues.
Let's do it, girls.
So
it's
funny.
Amazing. We're going to start it right now. You got your marketing team, you got your sales team. We're ready to go.
Yep.
Exactly.
I'll leave it with one last question because we're way over time because I always do this.
Yeah.
Because I love learning from you. One final tip for someone who wants to work on your team? What would they have to do to be the chosen candidate?
Ooh. Well, so when I interview people, I'm expecting them to prepare for our interview like it's a sales call. And again, it's so important to me to hire people who have this balance between IQ and EQ. And so that a conversation is authentic and natural, like our conversation has been today. Like I could have come in and said, I want to tell them that I hire hustlers and people with grit and courage. And you would have been like, well, I didn't ask you that. Right. But guess what, Sandra? You're a great host because you probably got all of my content in a very different way than I would have expected to deliver it. But I came prepared, and it's just let the conversation be natural. And so when I get into conversations that feel really forced, like, Jen, I want to communicate these 8 points to you today, and these are what they are, and I'm really good at this, and I have experience in that. I'm like, oh my God, no way. You can't sell me anything. You are not going to be able to develop a rapport and a trust and great listening skills with your customers. And that's kind of what that an interview is like. It's like I'm a prospect. And so I'm wanting you to come into it prepared, maybe know a little bit about me, know about the space, do the homework on the company. You may or may not know the space, but know what you have to offer me specifically and be honest about what you can offer me and what unique value you can bring to my team. So when I was telling you about Workday, I didn't know a damn thing about human capital management or financial software. No clue. But I knew what I could bring them. And that was what the focus was. Because again, it's never about, oh, I would be so excited about this. This is my dream job. I don't care. I don't care.
No.
I want you to drive results and be a great team member. And like, I have a lot of high expectations for my team members. And so I think that's the main thing. So my advice would be prepare and be authentic and make sure that you have a good, like you're reading the room.
Yeah.
Read the room.
That's perfect advice. And I think we've come full circle.
And show initiative. Show initiative. Show me what it's going to be like if you're my sales rep. I had a guy that I hired that I wasn't really loving, who at one point at Workday, he said, let me drive down to Orlando where I know you are this week. And I went, okay. I hired him.
Wow.
Better. All day long.
Amazing. Actually, I respect that a lot. That's amazing. He went above and beyond, which does show he will go above and beyond when he works for you too.
Without being desperate. Fine line.
That is true. That is true.
So true.
I've definitely interviewed people where I'm like, I can't. Like, this is not.
I can't. I know you guys can appreciate this at Bets. Like there are times when, especially when I was an executive recruiter, I'd look up into the corner of the room because I used to do, these video conferences, which were so novel back in the day. And I'd be like, am I on candid camera? Like, this is a disaster.
No, this was absolutely amazing, Jen Penn. I've loved this and everything we got to learn from you. I'm sure our listeners did too, especially if there's candidates, listening who want to one day work for Jen. Yeah. You've got all the golden tips. So thank you so much for your time and for coming on and for everything you've shared with us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. So it was nice to meet you both. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.